So I first read this book when I was on holiday a couple of years ago. And there was an old couple that was sat behind us, and the guy went, "Have you mastered it then?" And I just kind of thought, what's he talking about? And I actually left this out on the sunbed, and I kind of clicked on, and I just went, "I'll let you know when I do." And we actually got into a bit of a conversation about it, and it just kind of went, well, isn't that like a little bit shallow to just like not give a f-? It felt like he was scared to swear almost when he was reading the title. But I kind of went into the book with him, and I kind of told him what it's about. And he kind of went, "Do you know what? That's actually a really interesting perspective." And who knows, maybe he became a fan of Mark Manson's work as well. But the matter of fact is that this book really does put in perspective that you have to stop caring about the wrong things. We are so quick to think about what people think about us. We're so quick to jump to conclusions. We're so quick to say yes to things we just do not care about, just for the sake of pleasing people on a surface level. What does that actually do for us? It doesn't have any positive impact on our life, apart from makes us look like a yes man. And then people only come to us because they'll know we say yes. It doesn't actually increase our value in any way, shape or form. And I understand that not everything in life is about providing value. Some things simply just are. However, that constant fear of thinking about everything and everyone and everyone's opinions and all the thoughts, that's going to eat away at you a lot faster than you even realize. I used to be a chronic overthinker, and I would struggle to make decisions. I would struggle to ever be like, "Oh yeah, this one." I would always be like, "Oh, I don't mind, up to you. Oh, whatever suits you. Oh, whatever's easiest." And I would never think about myself. And that's completely backwards, because we are allowed to think about ourselves. We are allowed to want certain things in life. The matter of fact is that book made me stop hesitating. It genuinely made me think, no, hold on a minute. You can say no. You can disagree. You could just not be bothered. Mark Manson doesn't directly talk or quote any of the Stoics. However, it does have a philosophy that I believe is along the same lines. One of the major ones being you do not have control over external events, such as one of the quotes by Marcus. And I feel like that's the essence of the entire book, is to stop caring so much about things that simply do not matter. There are two main chapters that stand out to me, and that is the value of suffering, as well as how failing is the way forward. And I do believe that those two are incredibly important for a lot of people, because firstly, I think people shy away from suffering. They shy away from the fact that hard things are good for you. And I used to be exactly the same, because making a decision saying, "No, I prefer this one over that one," instead of, "Oh, I don't really mind," is a form of suffering. And there's value in it, because you have to suffer through the consequences of your choice afterwards, because you might think, "I prefer this." They might like that one. And now they might view you differently, but that's completely okay. And I understand that's a pretty extreme example, but it does happen on all sorts of levels, right? When you go to the gym repeatedly, what do? You technically suffer. You put your body through pain, through strenuous training, but then you come out as a better, stronger, more endurable individual. The value of suffering is incredible when done for the right things, because there are a lot of things in life that we have to suffer in life for. There are a lot of things we don't want to do, but we just simply have to. And they may not bring us much value. So when we can choose value from suffering, why don't we choose something positive? Why don't we choose to become a better individual? Why don't we choose to do something a little bit harder and make ourselves tougher than constantly look for the easy way out? And I do believe that does actually go hand in hand with chapter 8, which is, failing is the way forward. Because failing has consequences. It has suffering. And I do believe those things really do go hand in hand. And when you apply both of them to your life, I do believe that you're going to accelerate beyond your imagination. Because like I said, I used to be this quiet person who just never really wanted to say anything. I kept my opinion to myself. You know, not that I think I know everything now, but I'm not afraid to say what I think. Do I accept that I'm wrong? Absolutely, all the time. Everybody's wrong. One of the points in life is to work on yourself so you become slightly less wrong about the things that you do and say. If I remember correctly, that's actually one of the other things that's in this book. Focusing on just moving forward and not caring about what other people might think or say about you is freeing. It makes you feel different. It makes you feel like you've accomplished this little mission in life almost. And it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Something that took a long while. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't something like an overnight thing where as soon as I read this book, that's it, boom. I just didn't care about the things that I didn't want to care about. No, that was a process in itself. But I do believe that leading up to the point of reading this book, I was already on my way there, you know, from consuming stoicism and self-improvement content and things like that, as well as never really shying away from a challenge. And I do believe that that allowed me to get to this point. And then the book, The Art of Not Caring, allowed me to finally tip that scale. I do think there was a bit of a balance there for a long time when I was a little bit afraid to tip it into my favor, you know, into my way, into what I think, into what I want to do, into what I want to say. And I feel like when I was in that balancing moment, that's when I felt the least like myself. You know, at least when I was completely shut off, I always had this almost like a little zone or a little excuse to escape into, like, oh, I don't know, I don't mind. That was my escape. I was able to say that and I was able to mask how I feel, and I was able to run away from my responsibility that way. But when I was in this transition period, a lot of things felt weird because there was this constant battle of wanting to change, but being a little bit afraid to do so. Because there's always that feeling at the back of your head, isn't it, where it crawls back. It makes you think, well, what if? And I think that's completely normal. I think a lot of people actually go through that without realizing, because a lot of people don't tend to read or consume the things they should. And because of that, they aren't able to articulate themselves or put the thoughts in the correct order to understand what it is that they are feeling. And I do believe that this book right here allowed me to understand that perfectly clear. That is why it was the tipping moment on the scale. It was, of course, my repetition and hard work in the background that you or nobody else sees. And to be quite frank, nobody cares about either, because nobody cares about the things they do in the background. That's just one of the things you have to accept in life. But it was the result of that, and then reading and consuming the right things in order to understand myself as an individual. And that's what essentially allowed me to become significantly more free and care about the things I should care about. Because who cares if it's raining outside? Who cares if someone doesn't like how I look? Who cares if someone has negative things to say about my neck tattoos? I don't care. That doesn't change how I'm going to live my life. That has absolutely no impact on the person that I am, or who I am trying to become, or what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. And I know for a fact that you can do exactly the same. However, right now, you're allowing yourself to be shackled by things that shouldn't even matter to you in the first place. I do think this feeling is, well, or shall I say, gets a lot easier the older you get. At least I think so anyway, because you definitely see significantly more males who are middle-aged who just simply don't care. If you have something to say, they're not bothered. If you're doing something, they're not bothered. And I do believe there's like a freeing feeling in that. When you just don't care and you let people just get on with things, and if they don't like you or disrespect you, once again, you don't care, because that only has as much significance as you place on it. So I can't recommend you enough to read things that may interest you, to find out more about yourself, to continue working on who you are, keep sharpening your skills in order to tip your scale in your favor. Thank you very much for watching and being here, and I hope you've learned something valuable today. If you made it this far into the video, I really appreciate the like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to check out more content from myself and other philosophical type conversations that we just had now, I'm going to leave a video on the screen right here for you to check out. And if you don't, that's cool. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.